and it's for the Parks and Recreation Community Schools Division. They are in need of additional funds, as you know, in order to adequately fund operations and day-to-day facilitation of the school and camp programs. And there is no cost to the city, but it is a reimbursable grant, and that's why our fund reserve fund balance is always important.
Sure.
Many communities are hit hard when they can't afford to front the money and then get reimbursed. And fortunately, we are able to do this.
Does this include some of the after-school care programs that we have, that we are still doing some, and that the school district taking some over?
Our Parks and Rec Director, Holly Brider, is here. I'm going to let her respond to those questions.
It would only apply to the programs that we run directly, so we wouldn't be able to offer any assistance to those that the school is running themselves.
Right, but the ones that we still
Yes.
retain.
Yes, those,
So-
that would be what it would be applied to. Anything that we could be reimbursed for, school supplies, activity, anything that we could be reimbursed for, that's what we would use the grant for. At this point, we're just trying to find additional funding to do so, and that's
Sure.
why we're asking approval to
Well,
at least
and the
apply
only
for the
reason-
grant.
And the only reason I asked, because there was a lot of discussions, we went through the budget process about funding some of the other Parks and Rec programs, and one of the items that we considered was actually increasing the cost, I think, per child.
Mm-hmm.
So what, is there a formula, what percentage will go towards those after-school programs? Because I think that's a huge help, and maybe even keeping, as you said, in a fund balance to help us with next year's budget.
As far as I know, it would be up to $100,000 per year. So anything that would fall within that amount of money, it would just be up to $100,000 a year. It could be anything that we use for the program could be utilized. I'm not sure if staff costs can be received for it, but basically anything else that we would expend for that program.
But overall, it could at least minimally hold down
Yes.
any necessary increases in there. That's great news,
Yes.
considering what we discussed.
But
I
we're
think,
just,
as we-
like I said, we're just looking for alternatives to
Yeah, great job.
help us
Great-
offset.
Great job. Very good job. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have something? Hadn't gotten the grant yet?
Anticipating.
Yeah. All right, I think we did have a motion and a second, didn't we, Tiny? And that concludes discussion, so we'll cue it for voting, and you all may vote. It passes.
And this is an add-on. It's acceptance of donations in support of the Dream Lives Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration event.
Got a motion and second for approval. We've got Counselor Thomas with discussion.
That's not on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And let me just say, Madam Mayor, that the acceptance of donations of approximately $76,000 in 16 and $50,000 in 17 in support of the program Dare to Dream, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. event. And this is also asking to allow to expend monies to cover those expenses of the event, approved by the Mayor's Commission of Unity, Diversity, and Prosperity, and the Mayor, but in no event in excess of amounts received in donations.
All right, seeing no discussion. Can you all cancel out the prior vote? For some reason, it's still showing up. Oh, no. All right, let's take an oral vote. All those in favor, please state aye. Are there any opposed? And can you, as we move on to the purchases and some other things, is there any way to cancel that out?
It's not canceling on this one?
Oh, no, it must just be frozen. Okay, we'll muddle along. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager, the floor is still yours.
Okay, moving on, Madam Mayor, to purchases, election supplies and equipment maintenance. I'm asking your council to approve a resolution to expend appropriated funds to election systems and software, Inc., for supplies, ballots, expendable items, and so forth, for an estimated cost of $100,000 per year for 5 years.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second, and it looks like the system's working again, so you may record your votes electronically. Let's see, council, yeah, there we go. And it passes.
The next item I have is for the records management system. It's the Cisco Switch and AP bundle for the Columbus Police Department. It's $73,584.15.
Got a motion and second for approval. Seeing no discussion, it is queued for voting. And it passes.
The next item is also for the Columbus Police Department, 22 Panasonic mobile data computers from Motorola Solution, Inc. It's $116,496.60.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and second for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, it is queued for voting. It passes.
With that, Madam Mayor, I've got one update left, two presentations or updates. One is the UGA pay plan update. The HR director is going to come and handle that. And then she will be followed with a finance monthly update from our finance director, Angelica Alexander.
Okay, we've got Counselor Thomas, did you have a point of order?
I just would like to ask the city manager, Mr. City Manager, we often do what we did tonight to approve requesting grants, and we don't always get back information that says we got them. Would you do that for us, just as those come in, just an FYI kind of
Sure.
thing, not a presentation or anything like that, but just to let us know that, because we do this, as I said, at almost every meeting,
Yeah.
we approve some kind of a request for a grant, and it would be helpful to me to have the information that we got them, or
We'll certainly do that
Thank
going
you.
forward, yes.
Okay.
HR Director, Retha Hollowell.
Mayor and council, we came before you a couple of weeks ago and provided a update to the UGA pay plan. And we were requested to come back and give another update with a focus on one of the pay plan maintenance option that at least one council member requested. So we wanted to go over the update again and then place some emphasis on some of the options just for your consideration. The UGA pay plan, as we've mentioned before, was adopted in fiscal year 2007. It was implemented on July 1, 2006. It included most of the job categories for general government, public safety, and the court system. It did exclude some job categories, including part-time, temporary, and seasonal positions, and of course, elected officials. In fiscal year 2007, the pay plan was implemented at 92% of market. It also included longevity increases for employees with 1 to 3 years of service, 4 to 6 years of service, and 7+ years of service. In fiscal year 2008, the pay plan was implemented at 98% of market, and it also included longevity pay increases. In fiscal year 2009, the pay plan was implemented at 100% of market. In 2008, nationally and locally, we experienced a tremendous economic downturn. Budgets were constrained, public and private sector, they downsized, right-sized, and operated with leaner budgets. In city government, positions were frozen, unfilled, and some were deleted. In fiscal year 2010 through 2017, this chart just shows an overview of either COLAs, cost of living adjustments, or other adjustments as relates to employee pay. As you can see, in fiscal year 2010 and 2011, there were no pay increases, there were no COLA, there were no adjustments. Of course, beginning since 2012, there has been a minimum adjustment of a 0.5% COLA each year. And if you'll see in in fiscal year 13 and fiscal year 14, there was a 2% COLA due to the pension adjustment, due to employees beginning contributing to the pension adjustment. And then, of course, in FY17, there is a 2% COLA adjustment as a health insurance offset. The current pay plan, in terms of allowing employees to advance along the pay steps as it was intentionally designed, are very limited. There are options for promotions, opportunities for job reclassifications when there is job growth or job evolution, and the needs of the organizations. There are advancements as it relates to career ladder advancement, as well as education incentives. Education incentives, however, are limited to public safety or law enforcement personnel only.
Not moving.
There we go. We believe that a long-term strategy as it relates to the pay plan is needed in order to maintain it so that it will last us as an organization and employees for a longer period of time. And we believe there's much room for this current pay plan to be maintained and to be very viable for employees. So as I stated earlier, advancement opportunities are limited and tenured employees remain at entry-level steps. And this hinges on employee recruitment and retention and motivation for employees in terms of those employees that have been here and been in positions for 7 to 10 years, and they're still at step A of whatever their pay classification is. So those are limiting things, but I believe there are opportunities to allow employees to be able to move along the pay scale. I think one of the things we would want to do, or some of the things we want to do in terms of pay plan maintenance, is to establish criteria for employee advancement. And that's something that we really didn't spend a whole lot of time doing at the onset of the implementation of the UGA pay plan. And a lot of that had to do, of course, with funding or the lack thereof. But if we go ahead and establish some criteria for advancement, and we'll talk about some of that this afternoon, it'll also help us limit compression. That's something we hear a lot about our pay plan. It's not just limited to our pay plan, but many organizations that experience the same thing, and that's pay compression, and that's something we want to try to address as best we can. And establish a system for rewarding employees, and so that employees will know what to expect and how to plan for the future. In terms of pay plan maintenance, some of the things that you would consider, and we've done all of these, quite frankly, with our UGA pay plan, in terms of a pay plan performance. That's something that we implemented in 1998 and carried it to 2004. We've implemented longevity pay. When we first brought the pay plan on board, we had longevity pay, but it was only, in the form of bringing the plan up to market. Career ladder incentives, certification incentives, and executive and education incentives. All of these things we've done. Pay for performance, as I've mentioned before, we've had pay for performance. It links compression to measures of work quality and goals. We continue to do performance evaluations for our employees. However, there's no tie to pay, as it typically would be. Longevity pay recognizes an employee's years of service. But longevity pay does even more than that, because typically with longevity pay, you're talking about someone who has experience. Experience is valuable to an organization, particularly like ours. And there's also institutional knowledge that a lot of times, you know, when an employee leaves, they take that knowledge with them, they take that experience with them. So there's a great value to longevity and longevity pay. Career ladder certification pays, it focuses on talent development and professional development. Educational incentives focus on collegiate level professional development. Again, last time we talked, we presented some options just for your consideration as a way to maintain the pay plan, as a way to allow employees to progress on the pay scale, even in the same class that they're in, because everybody's not going to get a promotion, everybody's job is not going to be reclassed, or there are not opportunities for career ladder advancement. So we wanted to consider some other options that would allow an employee to be able to progress in the steps, even in the same pay grade or pay classification that they're in. So one of the options that we talked about is for those employees that are at pay grade 6 through pay grade 11. Pay grade 6 and through pay grade 11 are typically the entry level or lower level positions. There are currently, in this particular option, what we're proposing or suggesting that those employees at pay grade 6 through 11 and are also at step A or step B, to move those employees that are step A to step B and those employees that are at step B to step C. We could apply the 1.25% pay increase, that's the equivalent of a half step, or the 2.5% increase, which would be the equivalent of a full step based on our pay scale right now. As you'll look at the chart there, the 1.25%, if we applied that to those 297 employees, that would cost $112,881. If we gave them a full step of 2.5% for those 297 employees, that would be at a cost of $225,763. And that would just be for those employees that are at pay grade 6 through 11. So that's one option, but there's another option that's similar to the first option. It also relates to those employees that are at pay grades 6 through 11. This looks at all of the employees, no matter what step they're at. As long as they're in that pay grade 6 through 11, we looked at the feasibility of providing a full step increase, a 2.5% step increase. That would affect 354 employees at a cost of $269,988. Now, of course, this would be added to their base pay, and it would be continuous. Another option, option 3, looks purely at longevity. And we looked at the years of service, similar to what we did when the plan was initially implemented. We looked at years of service in increments of 3 years, 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of service. And we applied the 1.25% pay increase, and you'll see the cost associated with that for beginning FY18 all the way through FY22 to give you a sense of what the cost impact of that would look like. Of course, at FY18, to provide a 1.25% longevity pay would be $1.1 million, and then of course that decreases significantly in the future fiscal years. So that's option 3. Option 4 is another longevity pay option, but providing a 2.5% pay increase for those same increments of years of service, all the way from 3 to 30. Beginning in FY18, the initial implementation would cost $2.3 million, and then you see it decreases in the ensuing fiscal years. So that's option 4. A couple of other options. On option 5, what we did was just did a combination of the 1.25% pay increase for those employees with 3 to 7 years of service, and then for those employees with 10 to 30 years of service, a 2.5% pay increase. We applied the same years of service increments from 3 years to 30 years of service, and then you see in FY18, the cost of that implementation or the impact starts at $1.9 million, and then, of course, it decreases each year thereafter. The final option, option number 6, we presented that one because we realized that employees that were hired after June 30th, 2005, many of those employees are still at Step A. And the reason that many of those employees are Step A is because of their hire date, they weren't able to participate in the longevity increases when the plan was initially implemented. So we thought we'd look at those employees. That's about 888 employees that were hired after June 30th, 2005. We considered that if they were at Step A, if those employees are at Step A, we would provide either a 1.25% pay increase, a half step, or a 2.5% pay increase for those employees. And if we applied the 1.25% pay increase, that would cost $380,449, or the 2.5% pay increase would cost $760,899. So I know that's a lot of several options, 6 total, but, it would help us if we got some guidance from council, if any or none of these look like it's something that you want to pursue further, or you might consider combining one option with the other. Consider combining the option of paying the employees that are at pay grade 6 through 11, using that option, and then combining it with one of the options of the longevity pay. That was our thought, combine those 2 options, but those are options for your consideration. Obviously, the cost in terms of options 1 and 2 are they are the least cost, and would be fairly easily to implement.
Retha, one of the reasons why we brought this, I think, last month, basically, there may be some adjustments and refinements, I don't know, but we brought it back again in such short order because we had a pretty long and thorough conversation at council at our last business meeting when we were talking about health insurance. Right. And one of the things, there were several counselors who were interested in the grade 6 through 11 folks, and how even with the 2% cost of living increase, those folks are impacted and so forth. And so we wanted to bring it back again to show, typically when we have council discussions, some of the ideas are kind of all over, obviously, as people are solution making, trying to come up with ideas to resolve the issues. And some of the proposed solutions were actually potentially could cost us 1.5 million, 2 million, 2.5 million. And so I just wanted you to bring this back so that as council considers this, and it's not at all unusual when you're looking at pay scales, and we've got a huge issue here with our pay scale, the fact that we haven't been maintaining it. We have a great plan, it just hasn't been maintained. It looks awesome on the shelf, it's just not maintained. So that's created about 10 years, how many years?
Yes.
10 years
yes.
of issues, and it's going to be unless somebody pulls up with a trainload of money, it's going to be very, very hard to fix it in one fell swoop. It's just impossible to fix compression. You're talking about $25 million. I mean, it's too far gone to correct the whole thing at once. And so I thought for council's consideration, it's a very common practice for for-profit businesses, any entities, to look at their lower end pay scale and to make adjustments there so that nobody's falling too far behind. And since that concept came up the last time we met, as it related to health care, I thought that perhaps council would like to see this again, particularly the 6 through 11 grades, and, you know, that is something that could be addressed for about $250,000. So
Right.
with that, I just thought we'd see what folks thought about it, and for discussion purposes. Councilor Henderson.
Thank you. Just a question, I think I know the answer, but like in FY18, the reason that's the bigger nut is because they're going to get that increase for each one of those milestones, right?
Right.
All right? So that 1 point, I'm not suggesting, I just happen to be looking at it on slide 15, the 1.96 million for FY18. Then 19, it would be 579 on top of that 1.9 increase. So that 1.9, that's what it's costing us, it's payroll. So
Right.
that amount is still being paid in FY19, but now it takes an additional 579, right? It
Well, yes,
compounds.
because it's going to be added to their base pay. It doesn't go away. It's not a one-time
Right.
cost.
So, and I just want to be clear, because it looks great. Hey, we spend 1.9 million the first year, and the next year we pay 579, but that's on top of the 1.9. And then the 522 is on top of the 1.9 and the 579, and it just, that's the challenge. And I don't know that, yeah, listen, I applaud y'all for bringing up ideas. There's not a doubt in my mind that we're at a critical point where we've got to address the pay of the folks that are delivering the services. It's not just taking tax dollars and throwing it at employees. This is continuing to take care of the people that are actually taking care of 205,000 people. I don't think council has the expertise or the knowledge, the depth of understanding of how this impact is going to be felt throughout the pay plan. And I think that it's going to depend on what comes out of the budget. It's going to depend on what available funding is there, and then I think we maximize that and try to spread that over whichever is the most beneficial option. Obviously, our lower end people need to be adjusted, but you know, we got folks that we're losing to other areas, and they're in the mid-range, and they have not seen any increase. So yes, I want to take care of the folks at in the lower grades, but I think we have to, if we're going to truly address the problem and not just put a Band-Aid on it for this 1 year, we've got to try to come up with a way to spread that across the entire pay plan. And yeah, these are great options. I hope that we're able to implement some of these initially, and I think we should have a long-range plan, and I know this mayor, and she will. She'll have an idea for this coming year, and then she will probably, I would assume, that y'all are going to come with something 2, 3, 5 years down the road, because this is not there's no magic bullet. This isn't going to fix this. This is just going to make a dent in the deficit that we've accrued since '09.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously, this is a huge issue, and all of you know employees. You also have other businesses, and so there may be other ideas and concepts related to how you've tackled similar problems. We're open to those ideas. These are the ones we have, and like I said, we wouldn't have brought it back so quickly except for the fact that we had a pretty good discussion about grades 6 through 7 2 weeks ago, and thought you all may just want to see these numbers. This is a more, like I said, at the time we were having the discussion, it's a policy issue, but this type of thing is more cost-effective and more precisely driven to the policy you all were trying to affect, which was the lower paid employees and benefiting them, than throwing the health care plan out of whack. Because it's got so many moving parts, and it's this huge monster of things, and when you start messing with the premiums and the deductibles and the co-pays, it starts moving so many boxes around like a Rubik's Cube that it sometimes we have unintended adverse consequences. But something like this would get to the issue of what you were concerned about which was grades 6 through 11, and I know you were concerned about many other things, but this was one of the things, and look at the cost effectiveness. It's like, 1.5 to $2 million less than some of the other solutions we were talking about. So that's one of the reasons that we brought it back, just so you could see the options that are out there. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to know, how much would it cost if we were to pay the difference between what the employees have to pay and what's left over on the health insurance of those employees, grades 6 through 11? Do you remember how much it was?
I don't, but I can get that number.
Okay. Because that's what I'm concerned with, that they don't have to pay additional premiums,
Okay.
whereas everybody else, their 2% COLA
Let
would
me just,
cover.
sure, let me clarify. They don't have to pay the difference if they select the silver plan versus the gold plan. That's what we'll bring back.
They won't have to pay the difference.
That's what I'll get that determination of how many employees that would be and what the cost of that would be.
Okay.
Good. Okay, thank you. Counselor Davis.
Madam Mayor, with all due respect, we're having a conversation, okay?
Yeah.
And a discussion, and that's okay. But don't you think that this might be a little premature? And where we're at, and what I don't want to happen is that this becomes misleading to the employees, because we're only 2 months, no, almost 3 months out of the new year from the budget. We're just dealing with the pay plan, with the health and wellness plan now, and we're not even at midterm. So to me, I look at this and it's somewhat, do y'all know something that we don't know, or are we just speculating that we're going to have the additional funds to maintain this? I thought we just said we were at 56 days.
Yeah.
And I have no clue of what's on the horizon right now. But I do know that we talked about one of the reasons that we were trying to make a decision last week and moving forward with the health and wellness plan was because we didn't have the extra money to offset some of the recommendations by some council members to help with deductibles, or excuse me, to help with premiums. And we had to make that decision that we didn't have the extra funding to do that. But I don't want this to be, like I said, I understand it's okay to have the conversation, and I'm okay with that. But I don't want it to be misleading to anyone at this point, unless you guys know something I don't know. If you got the money somewhere stashed, let me know, because that's what it takes to maintain this.
Well, absolutely.
And I would like to have that discussion around the plan, because right now you're either going to have to take in order to accomplish, and I don't know what that means.
What I failed to say, Councilor Davis, is that this is presented as a UGA pay plan update, number one, because I feel like it's needed. After talking with the city manager, I feel like it's needed. But what I failed to say is that it's presented without having a funding source identified to pay for any of these options.
Well, you're right.
Right.
Well,
I
and
don't want that, like I said, I don't want it to be misleading. You know how rumors start.
Yeah, and let me just say, because it's a policy issue.
It is
but
very early in the year.
Counselor Davis is absolutely right, and I think, sometimes it's so difficult to obviously propose the budget, because it's got a lot of moving parts too, and you all well know that we usually are running right up to the end, right? Because numbers are coming in, and finance is getting these assumptions upon which this huge document and this huge body of information is presented, and we give it to you all usually at 5 o'clock the night before the deadline. And then the very first thing we hear is, this is the first time we've heard of this. It should have been presented to us before the budget. And so we try to back it up and present it long before the budget so that we have these kind of opportunities. And then rightfully so, this is too premature, we don't know the assumptions. And so I think we can present things in concept and get feedback in concept, and then as the assumptions come in, as the year plays out, we will know this is looking like it's a viable option, this is looking like it's off the table for this year, and just have to break the bad news. So that's kind of where we are, is stuck
and let
between
me
those
add
two.
to it. I think we all are trying to work on this effort. I think we all are.
Yeah.
We just need to see that open window. I don't see that open window right now. I would like to segue into another matter. If there's any other counselors that have discussion, I'll yield to them, but I would like to segue if we're close to finishing the
I think we've got Counselor
discussion.
Henderson.
And this is sort of an ancillary issue, but to qualify for the HSA is a HRA, $500 for getting the wellness and the biometric screening, and if you have a chronic issue, for enrolling in the coaching for handling that. Is that exclusive to the health clinic? I thought I understood that if their doctors performed that and provided the information, they would still qualify.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The employee can go to their own private primary care physician and have the wellness screenings done. Pretty much it's going to be the biometric screening. They
Right.
still fill out the health risk assessment that's going to be provided by the vendor, but they can go to their own primary care physician and have that done, bring it back, and still qualify for the HRA credit on their deductible.
Right, and there is no target for them to hit during those screenings. It's just if they exceed certain healthy limits, then they're expected to enroll in the coaching program.
That's correct. In order to get
the $500.
Exactly.
That's right, okay. I just wanted, I've heard people have asked me, and I thought I remembered that, and I actually got approached by some folks 2 weeks ago that were chewing me out, thought that we had voted to penalize them by $100 a month, $50 a pay period. And I reminded them that that was an early recommendation, and we squashed that, so all that's left is the incentive of the $500 HRA.
Absolutely. Starting next week, there will be employee information sessions. 5 information sessions are scheduled next week. Also, open enrollment will start next week, October the 3rd through October 21. Employees can meet one-on-one with an enroller, or they can call on the phone. We have a number of ways that they can reach out and get the information.
And I
that
know
they
we
need.
talked about having to be careful with urging people to take other plans, but during the enrollment, will some of the folks, particularly on the lower end of the pay scale, if they have family coverage, will they be at least alerted to the fact that Peach Care for Kids and some other items, opportunities exist? Whether or not they take advantage of it or not is up to them, but
Yes.
just so they know what
Yes.
their total.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to meet with an enroller one-on-one. They'll be talked to, they'll get that information, they'll be given a guidebook that they can take with them if they want to take it home and talk to the family about it and then come back. So they'll have plenty of
Those
opportunity.
guidebooks are not written in English, I've read them, so I mean, but they're just difficult to understand. I hope there's some way we can kind of really pay attention to sort of focusing on the folks that we know are the most impacted by the increases. Mayor Pro Tem indicated there's a lot of folks that their COLA is not going to cover.
Yeah.
Even so, okay, thank you.
Okay. We have Counselor Davis. Or we have one other, Counselor Huff, did you want to speak to?
Yes. Madam Director, as we put this together, let me know and email me on how we make sure we take care of everyone of this bottom level, so we can fix it from the bottom up and not the top down.
Absolutely.
Because fixing it from the top down, it never gets to the bottom. So if we start at the bottom with, I'm not sure, I saw some said 888 on one 300 and something, so whatever that is for lower pay grades, because you said there was a certain number that missed out, 2005, I think that was 888.
Yes.
But we can fix it starting up, and then when we get to the middle, we have the middle, when we get to the top, we have the top. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay. All right, and now Counselor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we're finished with that discussion, I wanted to, in light of this, we're talking about what it will take to maintain, but I think we're all aware, a lot of us who have businesses are having to look at this executive order coming out of Washington that goes into play December 31st, 2016. We have not had that conversation around the table. And to sit here and, I don't know if we can have that conversation tonight, but I am kind of concerned from a time frame. And to be honest with you, I really don't know at this point. I know bits and pieces of it, of the FSLA, the Fair Standards Labor Act, Overtime Act, that has been, I guess it was an executive order out of Washington. But how that affects our government, I'm sure it affects our government. I know they talk about exempt and non-exempt employees, and I mean, I don't even know who we're talking about, but I'm just guessing that we are going to have to figure that equation out, and we have not had that conversation. So in light of this conversation with this aspect of a UGA maintenance plan, how about this new standard that we actually have to comply with? And number one, what are we talking about? And who are we talking about? And how does this affect our government moving forward and from an a labor employment standpoint?
Well, Madam Mayor, and to that question, let me just say that we are well aware of the law. I've had staff, HR, dealing with the law, identifying the number of employees in our government by department earning less than the $47,000 something dollars a year. And of course, the law says that if they earn less than $47,000, they would then qualify for overtime pay, and that would be time and a half. If they're over that amount, then we would not have to pay them the overtime pay, because obviously they would be then salaried or they meet that threshold. I can have the HR director.
So they would be bumped up to that level, is my
Well,
understanding.
speak briefly to it, but and I've had this discussion in my department head meetings with all of the department heads. And what the law is effective mid-December, and we've identified the number of employees, and we've asked department heads to, rather than just adjust people to 47 to avoid the overtime, because we've got a lot of people who earn less than 47,000 who they don't do overtime. And so we want to track it for 90 days as we go into the new budget. And we'll identify any employees we think will fall into that category. And I've asked department heads, obviously, not to work to make them, in other words, award them overtime so that they will be, that position will then ultimately be identified as a position that should go to the 47.5 from where it currently pays. And so we've got a system in place, and we'll come back and brief you on it.
Well, I mean, don't we have historicals that we can identify these
Absolutely.
people who qualify for
Absolutely.
overtime, or the people who would be receiving? I don't even know who these people are.
Absolutely, and that's
And
why
that-
we've already identified all of the
Oh,
positions.
you have a list already?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We've already identified every position that falls below that money, that 47, and we've identified those who we can go back and look at payrolls who've not had overtime, and then we can identify those who perhaps have had overtime, and those are the ones we will track for a period of time to determine whether they need to be adjusted or not, because they may be receiving minimum overtime, $500 a year, that would not justify moving them from 30,000 to 47,000. So we are working it, and we'll come back and make a presentation to you, but I want you to know that we've been working this for some time.
Well, how about this, and I don't know how my colleagues feel about this, but, I mean, I would prefer a summary, and who we're talking about. You don't have to name names, but I don't know who would, well, maybe we do need to know about departments and positions, and who we're talking about, and then how the administration is going to move forward in managing this situation if it calls for that. What concerns me is what you just said, is we're going to track it for 3 months after the fact. Well, we, as a council, we have no clue what you're talking
Well,
about.
let me just say that I'll be happy to come back and brief you, but as a city manager and the COO, I'm comfortable, and I can come back and provide you information to make you comfortable that we're going down the right track. I've already provided HR direction, department heads directions, and I feel comfortable that we are going to come out on the better end from a savings standpoint than to just, we're not going to just automatically adjust everybody below 47,000 to that point. We're going to strategically identify them, and we're going to narrow it down, and we're going to require that department heads manage and keep overtime to a minimum, that we don't have to move people up to that point. And so I've got it, but I'll be happy to come and share with you.
Can you put a summary together for council?
Sure, absolutely.
So we can all understand it, and you said you were going to have a presentation on it, is that correct?
Well, we will come and brief you on it. But I want you to be, to know that we've already worked this, and I know exactly where we stand, and HR knows.
Well, include us.
Well, be happy to.
Thank you.
Did we have a work session on this about in concept? I mean,
Well, we briefed council on the
Yeah.
law,
Okay.
but we didn't get into the details of how many employees and what departments and how we plan to move into
Yeah, I
this.
remember a briefing about it, but I
Yeah, we
just-
did have one.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Does that include those employees who were not paid overtime but would be paid overtime under this law?
Well, they will not be, they're subject to overtime, obviously, if they're salaried at 30,000, I'll just use that as an example, and they're not getting overtime now because they're salaried. Well, if they earn less than the 47, they would get overtime.
Okay.
And so we've identified those who may be earning 30, the example I'm using, but they don't get overtime. So we've
Right.
gone through a process
Okay.
in HR.
I know we talked about
And so-
that briefly.
And so
on budget.
we'll come and brief you on it. We'll do that.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of work on it.
It's going to naturally shift a lot of work to salaried employees. I mean, because the managers are going to have to pick up to make budget. I mean, so you realize you can't ask Phil to stay because that's going to cause overtime, so you have to stay to do it.
So
Yeah.
those managers that make less than 47.
But let us just come
Yeah.
and brief the council
Okay.
and make sure you're comfortable.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we've got our finance update. It is a little cold today. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Mr. City Manager. What you have before you is a brief synopsis or a financial snapshot of our finances up through the end of August. I'd like to start out by saying that you'll see that there are a lot of, I won't say discrepancies, but there are significant changes as of August of 2015 and August 2016 in a few of the funds here. But That's really more so due to timing differences as far as when we process accruals throughout the month of August. We are closing out our prior year, the books for the prior year, and so some of the differences here is due to that process. And so I feel as if we'll have a better picture once we finish the first quarter of this year. So in starting to the right side of the snapshot and looking at the current fiscal year revenue versus the prior fiscal year revenue for August, the general fund is showing a change where it's down 13.32%. The dollar value to that change is approximately $1.2 million. And there are a few key revenues that make up that difference, although it varies within the revenue sources. The primary revenues that are impacted with this change are the title ad valorem tax, the sales tax, which is down 7%, about 7% from FY16, the occupation tax, building permits, ambulance collections, recorders, court fines, and investment interest. So that pretty much makes up the bulk of the difference there. And so the other local option sales tax is showing being down 7.35% from FY16 to FY17. The stormwater sewer fund is up 8.4%. The paving fund is up 84.03%. The medical center fund is up 2.67%. Integrated waste fund is up 13.37%. The emergency E911 fund is showing to be down 36.52%. The economic development fund is up 2.67%. The debt service fund is up 0.84%. The transportation fund is showing to be down 76.66%, but that is the transportation fund as well as the E911 fund. Those are accrual issues that are posted in August that, like I said, will self-correct once we once we do the next month's update. The parking management fund is up 0.69%. The trade center fund is up 4.93%. The Bull Creek Golf Course fund is down slightly at 1.75%. Oxbow Creek Golf Course fund is up 3.40%. And the Civic Center fund is appearing to be up 75.55%. If you migrate to the left side of the snapshot here, I've listed out the major revenue sources that make up the revenue in the general fund. To date, we've recognized a little more than 7.8 million. $7.8 million in general fund revenues, which approximately makes up about 5.19% of the budget. Right below the revenue section for the general fund are the general fund expenditures for various departments. If we're tracking it equally over a 12-month period, we anticipate that departments would be no greater than 16.66%. So the departments that show a percentage greater than 16.66% are highlighted there. And starting with City Council, there's an annual GMA fees that are due at the beginning of the year. And so as the months progress, council will trend as being over budget. As far as the city attorney's office, as far as litigation, we're still defending several million in claims. The IT department has annual fees for various software and lease maintenance agreements that were due at the beginning of the year. Also on the On the watch list is the tax assessor's office, as well as elections and Muskogee County Prison and the Superior Court judges. Those are all highlighted because there are annual contracts that are encumbered at the beginning of the fiscal year, and so that obligation is reflected in these totals. So as the year progresses, being that obligation is already reflected, those should stabilize. And then there's the public defender, in which we pay that contract in advance every month. So I've also provided the expenditures as well as the revenues for the other local option sales tax, where it breaks out the 70 to 30% split. We've recorded $1.9 million as of August in FY17 for the public safety, other local option sales tax. We've expended $3.8 million in regards to that same portion of the local option sales tax for public safety. For infrastructure, we've recorded a little more than $800,000 in revenue as of the end of August, and we've expended $2.7 million approximately as of that same period. So that is the financial summary and a snapshot. I've also, in an effort to save paper, I didn't print out all these other reports because there are several pages, but I've provided them to you via ECAP. There is the general fund expenditure report that provides the explanation that I just provided for the various departments in the general fund. There's a FY17 monthly revenue report which lists each revenue source code with the current amount compared to last year and those differences. And I've also provided, for informational purposes, the OLOS infrastructure projects report, as well as the T-SPLOS projects report. And those are all available on ECAP. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
We have Counselor Thomas.
I have two questions. On the 9 departments that are over the 16% that you say we should be at, are any of those that cause you concern at this point?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Basically, what's reflected in their year-to-date expenditures are those encumbrances that have been made against their budgets. So being that that encumbrance has already been adjusted against the budget, there won't be any additional charges to the budget for those particular contracts. So at this particular time, being that it's so early in the fiscal year, that's really the only reason why they appear on the list.
Okay, and the other request that I would have of you, it seems that in the last, I don't know, couple of weeks, I have gotten a lot of questions about the OLOST and about the T-SPLOS. Okay. And I have directed those people to the city website with the report that is on the city website that, particularly for the OLOST, gives a complete history of how much money we collected and what we spent it on and all of those kinds of things. And I know you said that you've put that kind of information on ECAP. Are you continuing to update that on the city website so that citizens can go to that and see where that money is being spent?
Yes, ma'am. As these reports are published or as they are produced and presented to council, they are available on the Finance Department's website. So these should be up tomorrow.
Well, I know that on the city website, it's very easy. In the middle of that opening page, there's a bullet that says OLOS and T-SPLOS reports. And it's very easy to have people just click on that and pull those up. So I would hope that we will continue to do that. One of the, I know one of the things that was promised, if you will, when the OLOS was passed, was that there would be, even though it's general fund money, it would be kept on a separate line item so that people can see exactly what we're doing and how much we're spending and so forth. And it's very helpful to have just a real quick place that people can go and click on and see what the history of it is. And in fact, for those who don't know, the OLOS information that's on there goes back to FY 2009, in the very beginning of the collection of that. And so it's very helpful, I think, to people who are saying, well, how are you spending that money? Here's how it's being spent. So the easier you can make that, so that when I have to give directions of how to get to it, the better it is. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions this time?
Thank you, Angelica. Madam Mayor, that concludes my agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will head into the clerk's agenda. And I'm sorry, Tiny, my page just jumped around. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Madam Mayor and Council, on the clerk's agenda, have a couple of items of information. A memorandum from me informing you of upcoming board vacancies on our Board of Water Commissioners. Biographical sketch of Mr. Ramon Brown. This is Uptown Columbus nominee for Mr. Mazurkowicz's seat on the Uptown Facade Board. A certificate of need application to the Georgia Department of Community Health from Columbus Diagnostic Imaging Center. Have a couple of resolutions.
Excuse me, items 4 through 6 and a second from the Mayor Pro Tem have been moved for acceptance, or approval, excuse me. All those in favor, please state aye. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Counselor Thomas.
On the resolution for changing the November meetings, I'm sorry that I hadn't looked at this today, but when I looked at it the other day, the December schedule was not there.
We updated that, Counselor Thomas, and those meeting dates for the month of November will be November the 1st, November the 8th, November the 15th, and November the 29th. The November 1st meeting will be 5:30, which is the proclamation session. November the 8th, a regular session at 9 o'clock. November the 15th, 5:30 p.m. regular session, and November 29th will be the council work session. For the month of December, December the 6th will be a proclamation regular session at 5:30. December the 13th, a regular session at 9 a.m., and December the 20th meeting will be canceled.
Okay, so, let me just make sure.
So, Madam Clerk, that's the 29th of November is still on for a meeting, is that correct?
Yes, that is. That is a council work session.
This doesn't
That's
say
the
that.
fifth Tuesday.
This doesn't say that.
Okay, Counselor Thomas is saying that whatever's on ECAP doesn't say that, so you're saying that it's going to be revised, is that?
And it should have already been revised. Let me take a quick look, Counselor Thomas.
Okay.
We want to meet on the 29th for a work session. This is just coming back off the holidays.
It has been corrected. The December meeting schedule, as
The November schedule doesn't show the 29th on what I have here on my ECAP.
Okay, let me just double check. I looked at it earlier. Okay. It has it in the third whereas, in the second whereas, Counselor Thomas, but you are correct. In the resolved portion, it does not have the 29th, but I will make that change and get a corrected resolution.
Thank you.
Well, before you make that change, I'd like to make a motion that we cancel the 29th meeting also.
Okay. So there's a motion to cancel the November 29th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion about our schedule? Okay. Is the 29th of November would be a work session?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's right after the holidays.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of canceling the 29th, please state aye.
No.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Is there, December the 29th, or we're not meeting on December 29th? are we?
No,
Oh,
that's
okay, all
November
right, good. I thought I
29th.
heard you somewhere in that. Okay.
We're meeting the 22nd.
Yeah. All right, I think we're set. Now, do we need to approve the motion itself? Or the resolution itself?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Let's do that separate.
It's December, what's the meeting dates in December, 6th, 13th?
The
and
meeting
20th?
dates for December, they are December the 6th. That'll be the proclamation regular session at 5:30, December the 13th at 9 a.m., and those will be the only two meetings. The December 20th meeting will be canceled.
December the 6th.
I thought we were still meeting the 20th.
In December?
Mm-hmm.
No, we're asking that one be canceled.
We have to have two regular meetings, don't we?
I'm sorry?
Don't we have to have two regular meetings?
Yes.
We're supposed to meet the 6th, 13th, and 20th.
We are combining our proclamation for the December meeting. That will be a proclamation / regular council session.
So we can do business. We'll do proclamations first, then it'll be followed
That
by
is
business. Okay.
So we'll have two meetings, you just moving them up in first.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to have to get us a list of this once we
I will
once we
provide
approve
that.
it. Okay, well,
Meeting the 27th of December.
Right, we are not meeting December 27th.
all right. I think, Counselor Huff, did you have something? Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve item 4, which is resolution excusing Counselor Huff. We have a motion to resolve the change in the council meeting schedule as amended to drop the November 29th meeting, and we also have a motion to approve the resolution to change the council meeting schedule for December. All those in favor, please state aye. All right, any opposed? Okay.
We're not meeting on the 22nd?
No, we're not.
She's going to get us a list.
I will provide the schedule to council.
That's my birthday.
Okay, I think you're off.
All right. Then we have a letter of resignation from Ms. Paige Swith, resigning from Planning Advisory Commission.
All right, all those in favor, please state aye. We have a motion and second that the minutes be received. That's the Board of Tax Assessors and Recreation Advisory Board. All those in favor, please state aye.
And we have an add-on, temporary street closing. It's just for your information to let you know that we've got a temporary street closing for Tuesday, October the 4th for headquarters Nissan. On our board appointments, on a board of honor, we're still looking to get someone to succeed Mr. Watson. He does not want to serve again. Civic Center Advisory Board, Councilor Woodson, still working?
Yes.
On our Columbus Aquatics Commission,
We have-
we have made contact with the Columbus Hurricanes on a couple of different occasions. We still have not heard back from them, and we will continue to seek to get their representative.
Okay, Counselor Garrett.
I just want to bring up, I mean, I've heard from the people that I've appointed to the Columbus Aquatics Commission that this is holding up them being able to meet, and they want to go and get this going. I mean, we've given the Hurricanes plenty of time to give us a nominee, and I kind of feel like we need to issue them an ultimatum at this point.
Or I guess what we could do is, can we just appoint somebody that we know to be affiliated with the Hurricanes instead of asking them to? Do you know some, don't?
Yeah.
Actually, we've We only have one person who has had their oath administered. We are still waiting, and I'm
I
not
just
sure.
did one today,
Okay.
or one or two, I can't remember, but one or
Okay.
two today, yeah.
Well, we have not received those back, but we'll go ahead and get with Holly so we can set up a meeting, and hopefully we'll have enough to have a quorum to hold a meeting. So we'll check and see who else has
Okay.
had their oath administered.
All right, Counselor Allen.
I was going to ask if there was a representative from the, I want to use the right term. Disability?
Citizens with Disability Commission?
I know they have a swim team. A friend of mine has a son that's involved in that, but I didn't know if they already had a representative, and if they are affiliated with the Hurricanes, then we might could nominate someone from that community to help with the commission.
We can check, Counselor Allen, and see.
That would be good. Thank you.
We'll try to do whatever we can to move the process along. On our historic and architectural review, the Home Builders Association, I'm sorry?
No, I've got two nominees now. I've got to call Debbie Bivens, so no, where is that?
And like I said, we're waiting to hear back from Home Builders. They have someone in mind that they're making contact with. Hospital Authority, Mr. Ken Chong has resigned. Cynthia Williams Jordan and Ernest Smallwood, as well as Betty Tatum and Mr. Gaffney, are eligible to succeed themselves. Okay. And then we hopefully have some recommendations from the authority. We've made contact with them. Housing Authority, the mayor is renominating Ms. Runell Bankston. Ken Henson.
I'm sorry?
She's renominating Ms. Bankston, Ken Henson, and Larry Cardin.
Okay, a motion and second to confirm all three seats. All those in favor, please state aye.
Counselor Allen, still working. On our Public Safety Advisory Commission, Counselor Barnes has nominated Mr. Byron Hickey for his District 1 seat. He can be confirmed.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And we need a nominee for District 3 as well as District 5. On our Tree Board, Ms. Glenda Culpepper has resigned.
Lindsay.
Constance Lindsay.
Constance Lindsay, yes.
Okay. We'll bring this back at our next meeting for confirmation. On our Uptown Facade Board, Mr. Ramon Brown has been nominated to succeed Mr. Mazurkowicz. He can be confirmed.
Got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And we're still waiting to hear back from Historic Columbus Foundation for Mr. Richardson's seat. Valley Partnership, Mr. Tyler Townsend has resigned. We'll need a replacement for that seat. Youth Advisory Council, Councilor Henderson, still working. Bio.
All right, we got a motion and second for confirmation. All those in favor, please state aye.
And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay. We have a request to enter executive session to discuss matters of personnel. Can I get a motion, please? It's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state aye. Great. Please clear the chambers. Thank you. Oh, all right. We are back from executive session on personnel where no votes were taken. And at this time, our business being concluded, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor, please state aye. All right, we are adjourned. See you next time.